Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Today, at last, I'm going to be taking a look at the Hot Toys Empire Strikes Back Darth Vader 6-scale figure. Let's see how it turned out. Okay, let's roll with the obligatory look at the packaging. It's pretty much the standard fare. You've got some solid photography of the Vader figure emerging out of blackness there. You've got a nice chromium Star Wars logo going on right there. Look at that shine. The rest of the pattern is pretty much, like I said, standard fare. Exactly what we've come to expect from Hot Toys, Sideshow, pretty much anybody in the 6-scale market and beyond that's associated with Lucasfilm. It looks pretty darn good. It's adequate. It's fine. It looks great in a pack of similar boxes, but let's get into the guts of the thing, which is what we're really all about. Now, this is my first look at the inside of this figure. I just unboxed it, and I've seen, but it's not my first look at the Darth Vader 6-scale figure. So you've got some great photography, and I'm going to show you how to do a variant of that pose that we're seeing right there in that artwork today. That'll come along later on in the posing segment. Here you go. In this top tray, you have a wide assortment of hands, everything from, like, say, force push to fists to lightsaber wielding hands, and that also includes on the left there, as you see as I peel this back, on the left there you have the powered, the light up arm. I'm not going to mess with that. I'm not going to mess with any of the light up features. It's very challenging to make that happen. You see there we've got a nice force gesture, so also kind of like a pointing thing. I don't know. Each one of these hands can be used for multiple purposes, and I really like that about this figure. Although that's pretty much straightforward force push, or, you know, if he was going to work as a crossing guard, I guess. Anyway, while I'm unpackaging this thing, I want to mention those two distinctly different lightsaber blades that you can see up in the upper left corner of the packaging. They've started doing this now. I may have mentioned this a time or two in a different video, but there's a stationary blade and a motion blade, so that you can add a little bit of dynamism to your poses if you choose to use it. The motion blade's pretty heavy, so, you know, use caution. Now, everything here is wrapped in plastic. It looks to me like it's going to take a fair bit of time to get it all unwrapped, so obviously I'm going to do that off camera. I don't want to make you guys suffer for it. You can see there I was gesturing at the belt boxes. Again, I'm not really all that willing to mess with the lights today. It's really a hassle to get to them, and I don't like using lights in general. Anyway, you can see the cape kind of jets through there at the back. That's kind of a cool feature. It just keeps it wrinkle-free. Beneath the figure is that really fantastic Bespin Cloud City inspired base. Now, enough about that. I think what everybody's really here for is the posing. So let's dive into that. You can see now Vader's out of his plastic, completely unwrapped. Again, powerless, as the case may be, because I know I'm belaboring the point, but I just don't want to mess with that. Anyway, as promised, I want to dive right into recreating that pose that we saw on the interior box art. That is basically him with his lightsaber out, but in a down position, reaching out towards Luke and begging him to join him to oust the Emperor and rule the galaxy as father and son. To do that, I'm going to need two distinct hands, the two that Vader was using in that image. One being the right lightsaber wielding hand, and the other one being a left gesturing hand, very specific to my needs. Now, one of the issues that I have continuously with this figure, in every Darth Vader figure that I've played with actually, is trying to get these gloves on to Vader's wrist pegs. It's very, very challenging. The issue arises because the gloves are one big piece. There's a long gauntlet that the forearm has to go into, and you have to find that peg hole at the base of the hand all the way down inside that gauntlet. It can be really challenging, mostly because the sleeves are dense enough, the Vader's sleeves on his forearms are dense enough that it makes it difficult for the gauntlet to fit all the way around the sleeve. So there's some pressure that's being exerted, and it becomes very, very difficult for the peg to stay in the glove. the end result of this is that you're at the slightest pressure, that hand is going to pop off. It's a very, very challenging thing, and you saw how much pressure that I just had to exert there to get that hand on there and make it nice and firm to where it's not going to pop off. Again, like with so many things that I talk to you guys about, be patient and just work with it. I try to imagine that it's like that thing in Apollo 13 when they were trying to switch the lunar module, or flip the lunar module around and reattach it to the command module. They had that little thing that the little proboscis had to enter and form a lock. It's kind of similar to that. Only you're flying blind. You have no way of knowing exactly where that peg is going to be. Anyway, that's problem is solved, and now you can see that I'm trying to get Vader's sword into the hand. The plastic on the hands is somewhat pliable. It's not the loosest that I've seen, and that can be a good thing or a bad thing. If you think it's too stiff and you're afraid that it's going to, say, break or cause damage to the lightsaber, feel free to hit it with a hairdryer. Anyway, now, I talked about this part in the How to Be a Poser video that I did for Sideshow. There's a very particular angle that I'm trying to reach that you need to work with this hand. And you just twist it there on the wrist peg until you get it at that particular angle. You don't want it to be too palm up because it looks like he's an opera singer. The real challenge with this figure comes with trying to get that helmet into a good, solid position with a sort of expression, or as much of an expression as Vader can achieve, because there's just not that much tilt that you can do with it. So again, just play with it. You'll have to push the neck forward, push the neck back, push it side to side, in order to get it free, get the bottom of the helmet free of those pauldrons, so that you can actually get some sort of a twist, turn, tilt to the head, anything to give him some sort of an expression. You can see now at this point that I'm basically where I need to be with the pose, and what's left is essentially the fine tuning and trying to replicate the body language of Vader to a certain extent, but also giving it enough of a twist that it looks more like figural art than it does the actual pose. Pay attention to things like that. When you're trying to nail a pose that you remember from a movie, for instance, the way that an actor's standing is not necessarily always the most attractive way for a figure to look. That's why you see companies like Sideshow making that break. I frequently hear complaints about, oh, that's not screen accurate, to which my reply is, good. You need to think beyond just nailing that exact pose, again, because it's just not always ideal. Incidentally, while playing with this figure, it occurred to me that for some reason, for a little bit there, I thought the helmet was too big. Somewhere out there is a great behind-the-scenes photo of Mark Hamill and a stuntman, not David Prowse, but a stuntman dressed as Darth Vader, who actually, I guess, performed the bulk of the lightsaber dueling with Hamill. And that helmet is actually really big. For some reason, you can tell it more when it's on the regular size stuntman than you can when it's on Prowse's head. Maybe they used a different helmet costume combo with the stuntman. I don't know. I really couldn't say. But when you see it, you actually get the impression of why it was so funny to do the whole dark helmet thing in Spaceballs. But I'm digressing. I think that's pretty much got it with this pose. You can see there that I was basically just playing with the drapes on the cape. That's very, very key to achieving a desirable look here. Now, see how on his right shoulder I kind of have the cape back a little bit further than on the left shoulder. That is a nod to screen accuracy. At this point in the showdown, and by the way, this is meant to be shortly after Vader and Luke had their penultimate duel, right after Vader's had cut off Luke's hand. And if you recall, that cape was really flapping in the wind, and it was blowing off to Vader's left. So I'm kind of giving a nod to that. Here what you see me doing is using double-sided tape underneath that tabard on the right hand side, and what I'm doing is I want to expose those pants and that boot because the sculpt is great, the work on the fabric of the pants is great. I want to showcase that. Additionally, I also want to create that flow, that sense of movement from his belt, flowing all the way down that tabard and around towards the back. And then that will lead into that motion of the cape that I was talking about earlier. So just trying to create a sense of various lines and a sense of movement within the figure itself that hopefully transitions to a sense of action in the midst of all this inaction. Putting the action into action figure, as the case may be. Anyway, the gist of it is that I just want to kind of create a sense of motion and have that kind of continue. Incidentally, especially since the cape itself doesn't lend itself to having armature wire inserted into it, at least not right out of the box the way that, say, the Kylo Ren figure does. If you want to put an armature wire into that cape, that's on you. You'll just have to do a little bit of construction, so to speak. The little cut and sew. If you have that talent, then hey, knock yourself out. I myself do not, so it will remain as is. Besides, there's still quite a bit that you can do with it, especially if you lend your talents to the base. Just have the cape, as I'm doing right there, drape over the right side of the base, your right, Vader's left, and that will kind of create the impression that the cape is either currently blowing in the wind, or it did blow in the wind off to the side and then fell over the top of that gantry, the railing on that gantry. Once you get it on the base, again, there's going to be some fine tuning. I needed to reposition that sword. The lightsaber was a little bit too close to the gantry's railing. And of course, obviously, if you're just holding your lightsaber up against the metal on that, then it's going to spark. It's going to catch fire. It's going to melt the metal. And, obviously, I think Vader's competent enough that he's not going to do that. By the way, this is probably an opportune time to point out that the gantry itself does light up. Those two yellow flashing lights ignite and flash out of sequence asymmetrically, and that adds a pretty cool effect. Again, I didn't showcase it here. Overall, I'm pretty stoked for the figure. There are some challenges to setting it up. You need to be diligent. You can see the battery boxes here. I actually had them in their proper places this time, unlike when I did the poser video. But the thing of it is that the costume itself makes it a challenge to hit some poses. I've read a variety of complaints online. I dismiss them out of hand because I don't think that people are really thinking it through when they complain about these things. Well, Hot Toys needed to work harder to make it more posable. Well, yeah, but you do that, and then you wind up sacrificing screen accuracy, and then you've got the people who are complaining that it's not screen accurate. So it's really a situation in which the company can't win for losing. They made some decisions here, and based on everything that I've experienced playing with this figure, they made the right decisions. It's currently my favorite Vader figure so far. I've had Rogue One, and I've had Sideshows, and this really rocks the house. And that just about wraps it up. I hope you all enjoyed the video and look forward to publishing a few more sometime in the near future. Until then, be good to your plastic. Hey, look at that! You made it to the end of the video. If you liked what you saw, feel free to hit that subscribe button so that you can see more. If you're really hardcore, hit that notification bell right next to it. That way you'll receive alerts every time I post a video. That's about it. Till next time, be good to your plastic.